Baba knows the way. For Joseph Baba Ifa, Baba knows the way. We follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Hey family, thank you for tuning in to Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. We're only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁 Candles and more. If you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button. What's up, Phil?
Hey man, happy Sunday, everybody.
Happy Sunday. What's going on, brother?
You look so dapper in that white. I think white's a great color on you, by the way.
Well, actually, I'm actually transitioning my whole closet to it pretty soon. It's actually in my 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗃𝗃. It's where the albino peacock was actually born.
Really?
I never told you that one?
No.
Quick,
tell me real quick.
Quick segue. So in the 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗃𝗃 or 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, it speaks of the peacock when he had all his colors. And he actually went for divination with 𝗃𝗏𝗹, and the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗃 was revealed, where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice with white cloth. And he actually was going to a drum to sing. And the 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗃𝗃 is one of the 𝗃𝗲s where the apong first manifested, which is the person who sings to the drums of bata, or any of the drums, whether it's dundung, igbing, or agere. And when he went, he sang. And if anybody's ever heard a peacock sing, it's not the greatest song. Like, there's birds that sound beautiful, right? But the peacock, it's almost like a screeching. And or it's like, you know, my best peacock impersonation, you know. And when he went there, all the other birds started making fun of him. And, you know, he just kept singing. He said, you know, I'm not going to pay attention to these guys, whatever, bro. And when he sang, 𝗃𝗏𝗯 was in heaven and heard the song and came rushing down. And 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃, it's actually one of the first, if not the first 𝗃𝗲, where people started coming into trance in front of the drums of Orisha. And the first orisha they say that came down was orisha, which means orisha reveals itself or manifests. And when 𝗃𝗏𝗯 came down, all the birds hit the deck, including the peacock. And he looked at the peacock and he said, "Oye, was that you singing?" He said, "Yeah, you didn't like it, did you?" He said, "No, I loved it." He said, "That's the kind of song we want. We want people who sing from the soul. You know, when you sing from the heart, you get heard much more." And he said, all these other birds, they sing for their ego. And we don't appreciate that. That's why we haven't come down yet. Even though their songs are beautiful, we don't really like them because they don't sing from a place of humility and homage, right? But you do. So what he did was 𝗃𝗏𝗯 took the white cloth and actually threw it on top of the peacock. And it ended up becoming his plumage, right? And that's where the white peacock or the albino peacock first manifested. So 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃 is the white peacock. So little by little, I've gone transitioning my closet, right? Where I used to, and it's crazy how you can live in taboo and not even know it. When I was a young man, I used to dress in black a lot, like a lot, you know, black tee, Dickies, couple Air Forces, you know.
I did that because I was fat.
Okay, yeah,
that was why I did that.
I dig you, dog. I mean, you know, black is very accommodating. Yeah. But little by little, as I've delved more into my sign and more into my priesthood, and I don't know, man, I'm kind of just on that tip, like the white cloth, you know what I'm saying? So in the beginning, I didn't want to be the stereotypical, prototypical Babalao, wear white all the time. But after looking at my sign, there's actually a part of my sign that says, 𝗃𝗏𝗯 gets offended when 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃 doesn't wear white, because 𝗃𝗏𝗯 gifted him the cloth, so to not wear it is an insult. So I definitely don't want no problems with that guy. That guy's like a second father to me. So definitely trying to incorporate more white, where I might get a bunch of white polos with just this different. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, the white, yeah, I've heard it assimilates me, man, so I appreciate it. But yeah, the white peacock.
All right. Well, this is a nice story, man.
Absolutely. Dom, you know what else is great is our membership program.
That is true. Maybe we should have some white shirts just for the members.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But guys, join our membership program. It's super easy. All you have to do is hit that button directly under this video. Gives you access to so much extra cool stuff like extra shows, early release to the podcast, discounts on merch, discounts on classes, you name it. You got 3 different
Absolutely.
tiers and so much fun stuff.
Absolutely. And more extra us, right? Personal, footage and content for all the people that are in the membership program. And if you're in there, let somebody know about it that can gain some value. Also, really excited about our workshops, guys. Atlanta and New York is steadily approaching. Can't wait to meet all of you. Be sure to get in there and ask about whatever spaces we have left because it's booked up very quickly, right? So, Chung in Love Part 2, sir.
Part 2?
Part 2.
Oh, so you're telling me Oshun's got that much
Yeah.
that we got to cover a part 2.
She established it, man. I guess based on mythology, she had to be with each of them to really show the different dynamics and complexities of love, right? You know, and I tell you, there weren't many options back then. So she kind of, when one didn't work out with one, she had to go with the next one. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to mom, you know. But when we left off, we had just gotten done with 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗄.
Yes, and you said that was you were created with that.
Yeah, so I'm crowned Ochun and 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗄 is my father. So 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗄 really doesn't come out much for many. I'm actually pretty proud of that, you know, because I'm very happy that I've been able to represent that Orisha in a positive way. He's really not somebody that stands for many. So the fact that he came out my father, you know, I felt a little type of way because they asked first for 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗄, and they said it's because I was always breaking stuff, like I was a little clumsy. So I felt the type of way about that, but he came out on the first try, so you know I felt good about that afterwards. And just a gentleman with a lot of talent and a lot of good energy. Like when you begin to delve deeper into the mythology of Ifa, especially as a Babalawo, you begin to understand the important role that 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗄 plays throughout the religion. And he's really an unsung hero. He's kind of like the John Wayne of Ifa, I like to think, you know, the strong silent type. But he makes a lot of things happen. So to be able to represent him accordingly is giving me a lot of pride because, you know, he doesn't come out as anyone's father or guardian Orisha much. So to be able to, you know, give a positive image towards him through our conduct and through just what we provide, you know, has been very, very proud for me. So shout out to him. He makes things happen. But things went well there. You know, just as far as Ochun and 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗄's relationship. So the next Orisha that I want to touch on, and mind you guys, this didn't happen in chronological order, but you know, another Orisha that she was with as well was Olokun, right? And the 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗄, it speaks of when Olokun had 9 wives and 9 daughters, right? Now, some people would interpret the female Orishas are his daughters. In other versions, they were his wives, right? And one of them was Ochun, definitely, because each of the female Orishas is a river in herself. So when we talk about, you know, the river of 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 and whatnot, the Ochun River, obviously, you know, she was definitely one of them because 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗄 speaks of how the ocean feeds the rivers, technically not the other way around. And the way we were able to see that was in the Odio Baba 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗄. I believe 𝗃𝗏𝗹𝗁 has something similar as well, where Olokun basically shut down shop and all the rivers dried up. So it was very negative. They all had to make offerings and appease him so he would bring the hydration back and fill the rivers once more. So it wasn't that per se they individually had a negative interaction, but Olokun was a little bit harsh and Ochun was like, well, I'm with this guy already, so we got to deal with it. But for the most part, it was positive, but it wasn't one that is really explained interpersonally, kind of like the other ones. But she was married to Olokun at one point as well, so I thought it was worth an honorable mention, right? But the next one we're going to talk about is really the big guy, right? 𝗃𝗃𝗃. Ochun and 𝗃𝗃𝗃's romance is something to be studied. It's something to be understood, at moments admired, at other moments avoided, right? When we go to the Odio 𝗃𝗏𝗹𝗁, right, for the most part, there are positive moments, and we'll get into 𝗃𝗏𝗹𝗁 and the other Odus that speak of that positivity. But initially, it was very toxic, right? So Ochun was a queen, 𝗃𝗃𝗃 was a king too, but he was more like a drummer. And she became very attracted to him, and she wanted to make him the king of kings, right? 𝗃𝗏𝗹𝗁. And through unifying the kingdoms of Oyo and Oshobo, he was going to be able to accomplish this. But the only thing she asked for was loyalty and fidelity, right? And he promised this. And unfortunately, it was a promise that he could not keep. And he proceeded to philander at the various drummings he would go to. And Ochun would hear about this, and she was becoming very frustrated and impatient and intolerant. And one night she decided to confront him on it because she was expecting a child and he was getting home at wild hours of the night. So 𝗀𝗃𝗿 came home inebriated, and through Ochun's badgering, he decided to lift his hands to her, right, and become domestic. Ochun cursed him and kicked him out of the house, right? 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗍, seeing what had happened, knew that this was, completely unethical and uncalled for, and he turned his back on 𝗀𝗃𝗿. And then 𝗀𝗃𝗿's ancestral self, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, or Ajaka, as he was known, which was the stone thrower, due to his offense and how he was offended at what 𝗀𝗃𝗿 had done to 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗍's daughter Ochun, actually struck him with a lightning bolt and killed him, right? So 𝗃 saw what happened and brought 𝗀𝗃𝗿's crown back to Ochun and said, this was always yours. And she saw 𝗀𝗃𝗿's dead body, and they say that she miscarried the baby right there. So very, very, very sad story. And it's one of the various ones where they didn't interact well. When you look at the sign of 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 as well, it speaks of the story where Ochun was crowning a bunch of orisha people. Like the masses of Oshobo were growing at an exorbitant and accelerated rate, and 𝗀𝗃𝗿 was becoming very insecure about this because the people in Oyo were like, yo, the Ochun people, the tribe, that clan is getting very big and they could go to war with us, right? And people think, the yellow team, like everything's flowers and honey and things like that, but the yellow team is very intense people. And, they weren't looking for problems, but if you want a problem, it's not a problem. So 𝗀𝗃𝗿 decided that he needed to nip this in the butt, and he was going to start, marauding upon Oshobo and places like Ibadan, where Ochun worship is very prevalent, kind of like in Oyo and Okoso, where 𝗀𝗃𝗿 worship is very prevalent, and the two lands started going to war. And 𝗀𝗃𝗿 initiated it, but they say that Ochun was really giving it to him too, to the point where 𝗀𝗃𝗿 complained about it to 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗍, feeling a little sore. So when this was occurring, Ochun was called up, and they each presented their case, and 𝗀𝗃𝗿 said, she's initiating too many people. And Ochun said, well, I'm not being aggressive. People are just coming to me because they're tired of this guy's egocentricity. And 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗍 looked at both of them and he said, this is simple. I don't want you guys interacting no more. Hey, family. The Light Within workshop is going to be visiting Atlanta June 13th and 14th, and New York August 8th and 9th, this upcoming 2026. Be sure to get your seats and your tickets soon. They're moving quickly, and you can do so by visiting botanicacandlesandmore.com. Please join us in a networking event where we're going to learn about Ifa Orisha, have group divination, and give all of us a chance to get to know each other while seeing the light. See you soon. Oyo people stay over there, the Oshobo people stay over here, and it's just that simple. But if you interpret it from a romantic standpoint, once again, it was very tumultuous and very difficult because they had very different views on things. They were very passionate in a lot of the wrong ways, right? Where it would lead to too much passion and too much emotion from an uncontrolled standpoint can be negative if we don't know how to control them, right? So they ended up kind of divorcing there too, to a certain degree. From a positive standpoint, in the Odu, I believe it's Osache, but it could very well be Ochesa. I'm actually leaning more towards Ochesa, forgive me. It speaks of when Oya and 𝗀𝗃𝗿 were married, right? And 𝗀𝗃𝗿, once again, had real difficulties assimilating monogamy. It was something that was very difficult for him. So he would sneak out and go and have other encounters and things like that. And Oya would hear about it and she'd become furious. Then he'd come back home and, they'd kind of make up, but it was kind of like a revolving door. So Oya said, I got to find a way to keep this man home because obviously what I'm providing isn't enough. So she actually had her sons, Egungun, who were, 𝗀𝗃𝗿's stepsons or sons, depending how you interpret it, stand guard around the house and disguise themselves as, zombies or corpses or whatever. So every time 𝗀𝗃𝗿 would try to come out, a different one would pop out at him and he'd get scared. This is one of the pataquis why they say Shango is afraid of Egun. It's not that Shango is afraid of Egun per se, but it was a different manifestation that was pretty wild, And he probably didn't have the powers he does now because Shango is 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍, right? He's the king of Egun. And one day Ochun was like, wow, we haven't seen Shango in a while. I don't know if they were having an encounter from time to time or not. But she was like, where is this guy? So she saw that he was trapped in the house, and she saw the Egun, and, that he was frustrated, but he didn't dare come out. So she crept up to the window and said, hey, if you want, I can get you out of here, but you have to promise to stay with me and leave all this behind. And he said, if you can get me out of here, I will stay with you forever. And, he used to make a lot of promises like this. And he hopped out of the window, or they say that Ochun left 9 𝗵𝗍𝗍s around the house to occupy each of the 9 sons, and she was able to escape with her. And 𝗃𝗏 was furious, but she didn't know where he was. So
what'd you say that was though? What is that?
𝗵𝗍𝗍.
What's that?
𝗵𝗍𝗍. So we're actually going to make a video about that after this one, depending on when it's released. It's 𝗵𝗍𝗍 is an offering.
Okay.
Now in 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃 practice, and I'll be sure to reiterate this in the next video. In 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗃, it can include a blood sacrifice, but usually in the 𝗃𝗶𝗍, it makes reference to things that are non-animal, right? So let's say she left some olele, she left some akara, ekuru, the different 𝗵𝗍𝗍s or offerings that Egungun appreciated, enough to distract him so that Shango could escape with Oshun, right? So Shango and Oshun were doing great, and he was in love with her, and he appreciated her. Everything was fabulous. But after a while, Ochun noticed that he was becoming depressed, and she said, what's the matter with you? And he says, I feel so ashamed, but for some reason, I just can't let go of 𝗃𝗏. No matter how many times I would step out and all these other things, I would always find myself back to her because we're just so compatible, and I feel horrible because you've done all these wonderful things for me and you saved me from a very toxic situation, but I think I'm just toxic, right? And Ochun looked at him and said, I don't want to keep you here if you don't want to be, and I don't want you to be unhappy, even if that means your happiness is with someone else. And Shango actually went back to 𝗃𝗏. So it's an ironic pataki. So Ochun constantly with Shango, it was always somewhat of a letdown. I mean, in the Odu 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗍𝗃 as well, it's one of the Odus why they kind of separated. Ochun, was physically assaulted by Shango. They just would bring out the worst in each other, even more so than with 𝗃𝗏, I think, because Ochun was a little more delicate than 𝗃𝗏, and she was a little less tolerant of his ways. So it really never lasted like that. But then you have Odus like Babairo Someyi, right, where Shango was a fisherman, and he kind of just lived on the beach, imagine Casablanca, in Brazil or whatever. Like, he was just kind of over there. And, he'd eat fish and, he'd give his fish away and whatever. Life was really going nowhere. So he went for divination with 𝗃𝗏𝗏. And the Odu of Babairo Someji was revealed, where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice at the ocean. And he was like, oh, wow, I'm going there now. Ochun went there to visit 𝗃𝗏𝗏 because she was looking for a partner and a mate. And she was having a lot of difficulties. Even though she was very aesthetic, she couldn't find any real profound compatibility with anybody. So she was told to perform 𝗵𝗶 through 𝗃𝗏𝗃, once again, at the ocean, right? And when they both went to drop off their 𝗵𝗶s, they ran into each other and were like, oh, you did 𝗵𝗶? Oh, yeah, I'm doing 𝗵𝗶. And they started talking, and, Ochun said, it sounds like you're pretty talented, but you don't have much business sense. Like, if you get the fish, I'll teach you how to cook it. I'll cook it, and then we'll sell it. We can make some good money here. And he said, well, you're not bad looking, right? And I'm kind of single. Let's see where things go. She's like, all right, slow down, cowboy. Let's make some money first. So they started pumping out a lot of fish and a lot of money, and they started doing very well, and they became very good friends, and they became infatuated with each other, and everything really went well, and they got married and had a family, and everything turned out really lovely in that Odu. That's why I always say it's really not based on the Orishas, it's based on the Odu, because in some things turned out great, in others things did not. There may be overall themes and whatnot, but that doesn't mean that needs to be the characteristic of their whole relationship. So there are instances where Shango and Ochun were very happy. And that's why Ochuns can crown Shangos and Shangos can crown Ochuns. we just need to pay attention to people's behavior and make sure that relationship between elder and godchild is strong, and that we're looking at the odus to see what we can avoid to create a long-lasting spiritual relationship. Other instances where they were together was in the 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍, where Ochun was married to 𝗀𝗀, and 𝗀𝗀 once again was on his nonsense. And, you know, he would go out and be in the street and do different things, and he would bring all the negativity home. And Ochun was really tired because 𝗀𝗀 had promised so many things to her, and he had not fulfilled any. 𝗃𝗏𝗯 performed divination. 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗃 was revealed, where Ifa told her, 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗃 𝘂𝗀𝗃 𝘂𝗏𝗄, pick up the garbage and take it out, where she started sweeping and dusting the garbage out of the door. And the garbage, you know, when 𝗀𝗀 interacted with it, he decided not to come home no more, and she realized that he was the garbage the whole time. So Ifa says, you know, once again, that there was tumultuousness there was difficulty. And then you also have the 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗃, where 𝗀𝗀 and Ochun were very happily married, and he was a warrior, and she would stay, you know, in the homeland. And he actually left her conceived before he left, right? So he took a long time, and she actually gave birth before he got home, and she gave birth to triplets. So due to old world thinking and, you know, not understanding basic concepts, they thought that being that no one had ever given birth to more than twins before, that the twins must have been in there, and then Ochun must have been unfaithful, and then another one found its way in via somebody else. It was completely ridiculous, but
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's real medieval. Like, okay, what are we talking about? You know, like,
They put an additional baby in
yeah,
there.
they put another one up in there. It's nonsense. It's like, oh, if you're a witch, you know, you'll survive this fire. You know, but if you didn't, oh, you weren't a witch, but, you know, poor thing, she's gone. So, you know, kind of that kind of thinking, Inquisition, whatever. But, you know, people started murmuring like, oh, Ochun had been unfaithful to 𝗀𝗀, the warrior king. So she was like, this is going to be an issue, right? So she went to visit Orunmila. 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗃 was revealed. Ifa told her to perform sacrifice and make offerings to the river. When she did this, she took her children with her, and her sister Oya and her brother-in-law Agayu lived at the river, right? And they were talking, and she said, I can't have my kids in the village right now because they might kill me, you know, because, you know, adultery was a capital offense. She said, leave them with me. I'll take care of them. I'll do my best. And when things work themselves out, if they do, come back, you know. So 𝗀𝗀 got there. People ran up in his ear talking a bunch of nonsense. He believed all of it. He publicly accused Ochun without ever speaking to her. And when they were in front of Olofin, 𝗀𝗀 publicly accused her, saying, you know, she's been unfaithful to me. There's a third baby in there. And, you know, he looked at 𝗀𝗀 like, man, what an idiot. And he looked at Ochun and he said, what do you have to say for yourself? She said, the only thing I have to say is that I've been faithful to my husband because I love him. I haven't been with nobody else. I don't know why this phenomenon happened. I thank God for it. But I'd like to be exonerated and move on with my life because I haven't done anything wrong here other than be a good woman. And he said, exactly. And he looked at 𝗀𝗀 and he said, bro, I sent you this gift of a third child, and you've completely besmirched it. You've insulted and slandered your wife, who loves you unconditionally, and you're just being a knucklehead. You know, if you would have spoken to her first or spoken to somebody, you could have spoken to Orula, and you would have known this. And 𝗀𝗀 was greatly ashamed. And, you know, he hugged her and he said, you know, please bring me my kids. And sadly, due to the lack of attention, and, you know, there's only, you know, two things that feed a baby on a woman, and there was 3 babies back then. There was no supplementation. The third one died, and they said the third one was 𝗿𝗏𝗍 or 𝗿𝗏𝗍, right? So 𝗙𝗏 and 𝗃𝗍𝗋, they brought them back. You know, 𝗀𝗀 mourned the loss of his third son, but he recognized the 2 that were there, and he said, you know, in commemoration of this occurrence and me recognizing all of my children, that's why 𝗀𝗀 really is the king of the religion. There will be a bushel of bananas, or a bunch of bananas that hangs from the door of Orisha. That's why, and this is public information, because when people come to the drumming, the bananas are there on the door. That is the commemoration of 𝗀𝗀's embarrassment, and, you know, his way of alleviating, you know, what he had done to recognize the people that initiate into Orisha, because we're all technically children of 𝗀𝗀. He's the king of the faith. So it ended up positively. I mean, he made a couple mistakes, but you know, he stayed a family man, and you know, he raised his kids, and that's one thing about 𝗀𝗄. His kids were his complete focus, you know, because he made so many mistakes with, you know, his partners and things like that. He said, if I'm going to be a good thing, I'm going to be a good father. And I will say that, man, the children of 𝗀𝗄, or 𝗀𝗄, as 𝗀𝗄 in general, when you look through all the pataquis and things like that, he was a family man, you know, at least when it came to his kids. The other things took some time and learning, but, you know, fierce father, really commendable. But that was a positive ending, you know, ultimately, you know, he stayed with Ochun, and they had a family. And by the way, Ochun is the mother of the 𝗃𝗍𝗔, not 𝗃𝗏. Just want to throw that out as well. That's in the 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗲 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲, right? So that was kind of Ochun and 𝗀𝗄's epic, right? There's like 6 or 7 pataquis there. There's really ups and downs. So I always tell people, don't judge an interaction off of one pataki, because it's usually very one-sided. When you see the 3 or 4 positive ones, it's like, okay, there's hope, you know, whether it's initiatory or if people, you know, fall in love and things like that. And ultimately, the guardian angel doesn't influence as much as the Odu, right? So there's that.
Is that one is that relationship the most tumultuous?
Dude,
It's gotta be, right?
I don't know what to tell you, dog, because honestly, I don't know of a story where 𝗀𝗄 caused 𝗃𝗏 to miscarry. But there are like 2 with Oshun. So, because a lot of people like to say, mind you, the woman that really took 𝗀𝗄 through the roof was 𝗃𝗏. That was his lady. That was the one that, you know, he just couldn't get over it. He could not, no matter what. Even if they were throwing lightning bolts at each other, they were in each other's arms the next day. So, but I will say that I think Ochun's was much more toxic and domestic, because it led to the loss of life. There's people that say that 𝗀𝗄 and 𝗃𝗏 never actually conceived, because in the 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗃𝗏 and 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, Ogun cursed her womb to never be able to have a baby by 𝗀𝗄, right? So you'll hear some people say, no, Egungun is the child of 𝗀𝗄 and 𝗃𝗏. But when you read those verses, which some of them are traditional, in 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗃𝗏 and 𝘀𝗶𝗱𝗏, they weren't able to. They say that who 𝗃𝗏 actually, you know, had her children with was with orisha, right? And being that orisha is from the royal lineage as well, he was 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗶. He was able to circumvent that because she wanted her children to have royal blood. So, you know, 𝗀𝗄 in a lot of versions is actually the step parent to Egungun, right? So I would say Ochun's was worse, even though I guess they did fight. Yeah, a lot of people like to say, no, yeah, and 𝗀𝗄, they're throwing lightning and fire at each other. But, you know, Ochun and 𝗀𝗄, I think, was worse because children died. You know, and 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 died, and 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗏, their child, died. You know, so I think that was much sadder, because, you know, yeah, and 𝗀𝗄, you know, they'd fight and stuff like that, but no one really perished because of it. But Ochun's and 𝗀𝗄's was a little sadder, you know, especially because of the kids. But then again, when you look at 𝗀𝗄 and 𝗃𝗏, remember that 𝗃𝗏's sister 𝘃𝗏 was having an affair with 𝗀𝗄, and 𝗃𝗏 killed her over it. And Olodumare saw what was happening and said, you know, this isn't right. It's not 𝘃𝗏's fault. It's 𝗀𝗄's fault. It's really all their faults, but, you know, 𝗀𝗄 was the one who was married to 𝗃𝗏, so he had more obligation there. And she resurrected 𝘃𝗏. And when 𝗃𝗏 went home, this is in Osa Ogunda, when 𝗃𝗏 went home, she was horrified to see that 𝘃𝗏 had resurrected from the trap door full of, you know, swords. And that's why 𝗃𝗏 can't see 𝗀𝗄 and 𝘃𝗏 together. So, like, if we're ever feeding 𝗀𝗄 and 𝘃𝗏 together, 𝗃𝗏 can't be witness to it. You know, and another thing, that's why 𝗃𝗏's biggest taboo is the ram, any type of sheep or anything like that, because the ram was what they were eating together. You know what I'm saying? So that's why. But even with all that, no kids died. With 𝗀𝗄 and Ochun, children died. So it was a little sadder, right? But then Ochun also had a relationship with 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗏 or 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗏. And that was actually a really positive one, man. They really were very compatible. In the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏 was actually where Ochun resurrected 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗏. So 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗏, basically died from the leprosy and things that he had been afflicted with. And Ochun, seeing that he was a good guy, he performed sacrifice, and she had always, felt a calling towards him or felt drawn to him. She actually resurrected him. And when she did that, she said, you can proceed as long as you stay with me. And he did. He was completely loyal and faithful to her. And they really are an amazing match, man. To the point where when you look at 𝗹𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗃's colors, there's gold in there. It's purple and gold. Those are very 𝘃𝗶𝗶𝗃 concepts as well, because when you look at 𝘃𝗶𝗂𝗹𝗶 or 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃's colors are kind of like a maroon wine. It's really, even more so the red cloth, like all of the deities in Oyo practically. But they were very, very happy together, and they were a great spiritual team. You also have the interaction in 𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗃 where, Osai wanted to court Ochun, right? And we'll get into him later, because he never had any luck there. And when Ochun denied his advances because he came for a reading, but he didn't care about the reading at all, because Ochun would throw cards there. He didn't care about the reading at all. He was just trying to get close to her to see what would happen, and she completely, deflected him. But because of it, he decided to perform witchcraft on her, causing her to lose her eyesight. So when that occurred, she didn't leave the house for like 5 days, and 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃 was a guy in the town, and he's like, yo, this lady, she usually has a bunch of clientele, and she won't open the door, or, something might be wrong. So he went in, and he saw her in deplorable condition. She was starving. She was thirsty. There was, it was just a mess, somebody unattended to for 5 days. So he asked what was going on. She said, please give me some water. He did. And she was like, I don't know what happened. I gave this guy a reading, and then after that I went blind, and I'm hungry. I haven't taken a bath. Like, I have needs. And he said, with your permission, I'll help you, and he did, respectfully. And he took her to Orumila. About 𝗃𝗶𝗃 was revealed, where Ifa said she needed to perform orisha initiation to alleviate this curse, right? So 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃 paid for it. He paid for her mano orula when she came with Oyekumei, and he also paid for her to initiate into orisha. So she had 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃 and Orumila guided her into the room of orisha, and when she went through her process, her eyesight was regained. When that occurred, she saw 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃, not a bad-looking guy, and how loyal and how helpful he had been, and she said, I'll marry you. And they stayed together, and they had an amazing orisha egun practice, where she would throw the cards and consult with the 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗃. He might have been a 𝗵𝗶𝗹, might not have been, might have been an Oriate, I don't know, but they did very well together, and they never had any issues after that. So the combination of Ochun and 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃 was actually extremely, extremely positive. They never had any beef whatsoever. So it's actually one of the better ones, kind of like 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃, Agayu. It's really ironic because, a lot of people, especially in the popular culture of Orisha, they're like, Ogun, Shango, and when you look, she actually had a much better time with the obscure guys, the guys that were really focused on her and focused on their progress. When you kind of look at Orishas like, Shango, Nelegua, and Ogun, they were a little more self-centered. They were like, I'm the guy, rather than allowing her to, exercise her space, Another random Orisha before we get into Orula, because that's really the one we're going to cap everything off with. Another Orisha that she married was Orisha Akarin, right? This is an Orisha that's very obscure. Like, not a lot of people have heard of it. It's in the Odu of Ikafung, which is also where the commandments of Ifa are born. And Orisha Akarin is the Orisha of the reflection. And he was being chased by all the Orishas, because all the Orishas wanted him so they could look at themselves. It's the Odu of vanity, right? Or narcissism, right? Or Narcissus, kind of like in Greek mythology, when he looked at himself so much that he stayed petrified.
Yeah.
They might have gotten that from us,
Wow.
So Akarin ran to Orumila's house looking for, some type of protection. They did divination. Ikafung was revealed, where Ifa told him to perform sacrifice at the river. He took the ebo there, and people were chasing him still, and he was very desperate at this point. He's like, somebody's going to get me. And Ochun, who lived in the river, saw him and said, "What's the matter?" He said, "My name is 𝗃𝗃𝗃. All of the Orishas are trying to get me." And she was like, "Why?" He's like, "Because I can help them see themselves." And she was like, "Really? Show me." And he showed her, and she was like, "Oh." And she was like, "Well, I could help you. If you want, you can come and live in here with me. But I'm the one who distributes you, right?" And he was like, "Miss, I'll give you whatever you want. Just please save my life, because if not, I'm going to be bounced around, and, I just can't deal with that." And she said, "Come on in." And he dove into the river. So when the Orishas got to the river and they looked in the river, they saw their reflection, but no one could grab it. So the river was the first mirror. And that's why Ochun is the goddess of the mirror and ultimately the goddess of love. Because to be in love, the first person you have to love is you. So that's why it's actually one of the most profound relationships. And that's why Ochun is constantly depicted as having a mirror, right? Because the river is the mirror of nature. So, and that's why in Orisha functions, whether it's a drum, whether it's an initiatory process, what have you, the mirrors need to be covered. Because they say that Orisha Karing, when the people would stare at him too much, they would become mentally and emotionally unstable. So and it was the vanity that took them there. So that's why Ochun, in that Odu, or Odu's like 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 or 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗁 and 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗏, she couldn't stare at herself too long because it would cause her to become frenetic. So interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁, right? The perfect match, the best relationship that Ochun ever had, man. There's so many patakis that speak of their union and how positive it was and how blessed it was. The big one is Baba Ifa June, right? There's various parts to this epic tale that's there. One of the first ones is where 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁 was a hunter, and the other hunters were jealous of him because he would just get these huge elk and deer and antelope and whatever else is in Africa. And they decided to set a trap for him. And when they did, he fell in the hole and he broke his legs. So this is the Ifa of the Good Samaritan, where everybody would walk by and laugh at him and no one would help him, right? So they say that a woman walked by and she saw him inside and said, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Absolutely not. There was a dead deer down there and, his legs were broken." And she's like, "Do you need help?" And he was like, "Desperately." So she took off all her clothes and she made a rope out of them. Ironically, she was on her menses. And the part that he had to grab was the part that, was in contact with that. So originally he was like, but I got to get out of this hole. So he had to leave the deer and he hung on to that. And this woman actually pulled him out. Chung, I mean, that's pretty strong to pull all that dead weight. So that's also why women can attend to Ifa on their menses. It's one of the few Orishas that can be interacted with because Ochun saved Orula on her menses. So she took him in. She nursed him back to health. She fixed his legs. He became completely infatuated with her. He fell in love with her. He said, "I'll give you anything you ask of me." She said, "Well, give me a baby." Do you remember New York from Flavor Flav?
Yeah.
Do you remember when she was talking to the guy at the dinner table and she's like, "I want a baby."
Yeah.
You remember that? She's so,
Tiffany, that's her
yeah.
name.
That is so funny, man. This is kind of what I think of when I read the Pataki. I got a very vivid imagination, Phil. And he did just that. Orula, he did everything he could to give her a baby. And, whether she conceived or not, he wasn't aware and he left. But he did, in fact, give her a child. So there's a interesting twist that happens here. In some versions, it was a boy. In the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏 practice, 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗏 was a boy. But in the 𝗃𝗶𝗏 practice, 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗏 was a girl. And, she grew up, and 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃 is the Ifa of the Hunger Games, where they would select one young lady to be sacrificed to Oduduwa Alabuweye. Even though 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃 speaks of Oduduwa Elesemefa, Alabuweye was the Odua that would cover himself in blood. He's also in 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃. This Pataki is semi there as well. And they actually chose 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃 that year. So Ochun was very distraught, but she knew that her baby father was the head Babalawo in Ife, and he was actually the one who would facilitate and officiate the great sacrifice of the young girls to Oduduwa. So Poroye, her whole life, had heard her mother talk about this story, about her father and the song that he sang to get her attention, to save him out of the hole. So when she was in the prison barracks or in her cell, she started singing the song mentioning Orumila. So the prison guard, knowing exactly who the 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁, or the head priest of Ife was, went running to Orumila to say, hey, there's this girl that's incarcerated is saying she's your daughter. And he was like, I don't got no kids. So he went running to the jail and he said, sing the song. And it was the exact same song he had sang so that Ochun would save him. So he said, oh my God, I think I got this lady pregnant like 14 years ago, bro. And he said, what's your name? She said, my name is Poroye. And he quickly realized he had to save her. Someone was actually kind enough to put the translation of Poroye in the comments, man. I think it's in the comments in 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁𝗃.
Oh, really?
Shout out to that person. It's somebody that avoids death or something like that, I believe. I gotta freshen up on that one. Okay. But what he did is with the help of Eshu, when they were going to sacrifice the girl, they switched the girl with a goat, right? And Oduduwa unwittingly ate the goat instead of a girl. And he's like, man, this year tastes really great. And then they showed the goat to Oduduwa, and he's like, what's the meaning of this? He said, Baba, I'm sorry, but the girl that we were going to sacrifice was my daughter, and I can't let that happen. And he said, you know what? I'm not even worried about it. I like the goat more. All human sacrifice is done. And all the Orishas picked their animals, right? Mm-hmm. And, Ochun came, Orula, he reconciled with her. In some versions, they got together. In other versions, they did not, but they had a beautiful co-parenting relationship. I like to think they got together. Why not? And, he was able to save his daughter. But there's also another story in 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗶 where it speaks of Ochun. And Ochun had a horrible divorce from Shango. And she was in her late 30s to early 40s. And Orumila saw her crying by the river. And, he approached her and said, what's the matter? And she said, oh, horrible divorce. I'm just trying to get my life together. And he said, well, why don't we go out? And she kind of looked at him and she said, you've been very persistent. You've seen me fail with all these other men and you're still interested in me. Why? He said, because I know the caliber of woman you are. And, I think you're beautiful. And Ochun was appalled by Orula. And she said, do you understand that I can't have kids at this age? Like, you don't have kids. I don't have kids. Like, and he was like, well, we could try. You know what I'm saying? And they started dating and things like that. A bunch of adult activities happened. And out of nowhere, she actually became pregnant. That's why 𝗵𝗶𝗸𝗶𝗍 is an Odu that identifies why women can conceive up until the age of 50 and safely deliver. And I know of women that have been able to do it even past 50. Right, so it's really incredible science, whether it's ancient or modern, it's pretty much been happening. And they had their child and they named it Poroye, right? It was he who averted death. And they lived happily ever after. Until this day, there's so many patakis of Ochun and Orula. That's his Aphrodite, and she is, that's she's everything to him and he's everything to her. So it's really always been a perfect combination because it's always been founded on respect and friendship first. When you look at all of the other relationships that went bad, there was never any friendship involved. It kind of got to the point very quickly. But with Orumila, he recognized that Ochun was powerful in all the same ways. She was a very spiritual woman. She learned how to throw the erindi logun from Orula. In 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗃 was actually where they met each other in the land of Oshobo. And they started a relationship and a family and moved and expanded to other lands. In the 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗃 was where they founded a house together. I mean, there's so many stories of them together. Even in the 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗃, even the same Odu where she started a relationship with Ogun, she was the one who assisted Orula in being able to perform the Ifa initiation, right? When we're at the table, whether it's during the Ifa or during the cuchillo of Ifa, it is the 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗍 who brings the water to be able to finish the ceremony. So they say that is Ochun. That's why you sing Ochun 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗍, 𝗃𝗶𝗶𝗍, omiwa. Ochun omiwa. Ochun, please bring me water. 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗲. The mother of nations, the mother of the town, is going to, bring us water. So they're completely inseparable. And even if you look on the 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗲 or the tray of Ifa, the woman that is always depicted there is always Ochun. So I would say that was the best relationship that Ochun ever had, because it was the one that persisted till today. And even in Odus like 𝗃𝗶𝗹𝗁𝗲, where he saved her from slavery from 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗲, and he took her and he made her, a great woman, just like she made him a great man. So
wow, I
tell you, it's really impressive, man, when you kind of look at her trajectory through love and all the failures and all the successes and everything in between. I tell you, man, the reason I admire the Orishas so much is they never had the shame to not put their failures on public display for our benefit. And, it's very easy for someone to look at Ochun and be like, oh my God, how could she? But she was a woman. She's a woman. And, people make mistakes. People learn from them. People also make the right choices and grow from them. And I think that's it really resonates with her greatness, that she was not ashamed of every failure, but she was very quick to display all of her successes and show anyone that has had, difficulties in love or not a lot of luck, that there's always hope, as long as we're willing to not accept the misbehavior of others and also better ourselves in the ways we can recognize.
Well, you want to recognize something else?
My members.
That's right, our members, man. Great episodes, by the way, man. That's two full episodes of Oshun. And
let us know what you guys think, man. It became a two-parter really quickly. Also, throwing in Osang there. We've mentioned Osang. He tried to impress her. He failed.
He got stuck in the friend zone?
Oh, God. All the
Big
way
time?
to the left. Yeah, he wasn't impressive.
All right, well, okay. All right, guys, real quick before we wrap up, let's show some love to the members who show love to the channel. If you guys are interested, join our channel. Right under this video, there's a button. Takes you to our membership platform. We got 3 separate tiers, each tier offering its own perks, whether it's extra episodes, discounts on merch, discounts on classes, you name it. So we got the VIPs.
Oh, the VIPs.
Today. These are the elite of the elites, right?
Love
and again, YouTube is YouTube made these everyone's.
But what's it doing? Like an autocorrect?
No, it's just all one word now.
Oh,
like,
they don't get the spaces no more.
Yeah, no. So,
why?
So if I mispronounce your name, please correct me in the comments.
Sorry.
All right, here we got Damian Cheatham.
Okay.
We got Anthony D.
Thank you.
We got 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗃.
Welcome back.
We got Ali Statler.
Very nice.
We got Purpose Driven.
Okay.
Right?
Aren't we all?
Yeah, right. We got Annette Thompson.
Thank you.
We got 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗄𝗃.
Very nice. Papo.
We got Latrell McNary.
Very nice.
Appen Be Rich.
Vips.
We got Crown Me Queen.
Okay.
And Holy Gorilla.
Oh, very nice. 𝗃𝗶𝗃𝗃 Holy. Members, let somebody know about the program if they can get some value from it, guys. Be on the lookout for our workshops. We're very excited about the Light Within coming to Atlanta and New York. Check to see if there's any spaces available at this point. If so, we want you there. 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗃 is up and running for all of your product and service needs. If you can't watch us, listen to us on all these major platforms like Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. And until next time, see the light.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients, he honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.